question you have asked, that what are the qualifications and criteria of a leader? A leader is defined as someone who has the courage to go against the tide of the time. A leader is someone who has the vision to see the beyond the horizon, to see the character to be able to lead a group of people towards achieving that vision which others cannot see. Allama Iqbal has defined a leader as Nigah Buland Sukhand al-Nawaz Jan Pursoz, which means he is the visionary man. Nigah Buland means he is a visionary man. He can see beyond the horizon. He can see what ordinary people cannot see. He is a man way ahead of his time. This is how Iqbal was defined by one of his teachers, saying that Iqbal is man of his age. He is a man ahead of his age. And he is a man at war with his age. This is a leader. Because he has the courage, he has the vision to see the beyond centuries. He sees beyond hundreds of years. And of course, leadership levels differ. A leader can be of a group of 10, 15 people also. And a leader can be of a whole nation also. And a leader can be of humanity also. So depending on what role he has, he will have vision accordingly. But the definition remains the same. If for a person to emerge as a leader within a group, he has to have a vision superior to all others around him, all his peers, all the people around him. They differ. The difference between a man who emerges as a leader and the crowd who follows him is the vision. That's the first criteria. Sukhand al-Nawaz Iqbal defines. The second parameter in the criteria is that he is a lovable personality. He has to be loved. And how would a person be loved? By showing strength of character, by showing strength of courage, by showing immense attribute within his personality to attract people or towards him. The goodness. He could be able to ignite the passion in you, the romanticism in you, the ideals in you, give you hope. He's Sukhand al-Nawaz. When you hear him and he ignites passion in you. So he gives you higher objectives, he gives you higher fascinating goals. When Muslims were totally downtrodden, finished, decimated, Ottoman Empire was completely balkanized, Muslims were completely in a state of disarray. There was no hope, total darkness. A man rises and says, Liya jayega tujhse kaam duniya ki imamat ka. Rise, you will lead the world. Imagine the hope that he gave. This is the second criteria. Nigah Buland, Sukhand al-Nawaz. People will fall in love with him. That's simple. People will simply fall in love with him. He would be a lovable personality. As we say, simple, he's huggable. You'd like to hug him. So, and third criteria is Jan Pursoz. He would be a spiritual man. You see, spirituality in our Islamic term relates purely to divinity, to love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and love of the Prophet. But in other religions also, the spirituality exists. In other religions also, whenever you find a leader, he would always take access of higher values, divine power, spiritual sublime forces and concepts, whether it is Mao Zedong or whether it is, you say, Charles de Gaulle or whether you would say Napoleon. They would always draw their inspiration from the religious or spiritual values. They will try to draw their energies from it. Because this is the attribute, as far as a Muslim leader is concerned particularly, that there cannot be any Muslim leader without a spiritual personality, the true leadership we are talking about. So, and since I am talking in context of leading the nations, of course you can relate the whole parameters to a corporate environment also. If you, for example, if you come down to a company or an organization or an army general who is leading his army into battle, the same criteria would apply to him also. He would have to be a visionary man who can see and maneuver, see what his army needs, what are the enemies are planning, what kind of threats would be generated for the country, and he can develop a response. He should be a lovable leader. He should be a leader who should lead by example, who should not send his soldiers to to risk their lives while protecting himself. He would be leading the war himself. He would be risking, taking all the threats and risks which soldiers are facing, the officer would also be facing. And that's how he would be taking care of them, protecting them, be with them when they need it, take care of their needs and their personal and emotional issues. And that's how he becomes loved by his soldiers. No leader, no soldier, no general can lead if he is not loved by his troops, if he is not loved by his soldiers that he is leading. And of course, then he should be able to ignite in them a spiritual passion of what they are doing, the higher cause, the values. Even George Bush uses fantastic words like liberty and freedom and human value and civilization. He tries to ignite those values using these bombastic terms. In reality, he doesn't mean it. But a true leader would actually mean what he says. So if you ask me, Allama Iqbal has most brilliantly defined a leader. यही रखते सफर मेरे कारवां के लिए निगाह बुलंद सुखंदर नवाज जहाँ पर तो this is exactly what you need in a leader to lead a nation to its glory. This is what Iqbal has said. So if you ask me, all our life, mashallah, Allah has blessed me with life about 51 years now, and all of you are little children, but all my life I've seen these standard rules and laws apply in every facet of society, every facet of life, and every experience that we have seen. The same qualities. Anyone who has emerged within a group of people had to be better visionary than them, he would be loved by them, and he would be able to ignite some passion for people to get around him and follow a certain mission, whether it is a small group in a neighborhood or whether it's the leader leading a nation to creating its own destiny, which would affect generations to come. The rules are the same.
So when a leader is existing in a society, is he clear as a leader, like everyone knows the leader is here, or do people have to search for the person who is the right leader at that time?
This is the beauty of the leadership. People do not create leadership. It's the leadership who create the people around him. It's the leadership who emerges in a crisis. This is the definition of a leadership is that he would be the last man standing. When the crisis would come, when the nation is in despair, when the nation is in disarray, when everyone has dispersed, the only one standing in that crisis, giving hope to the people and asking them to come towards him, is the leader. So you don't create him. You see him in times of crisis. And best of the leadership always emerge when they are darkest of times. And giving you the example of Sayyidi Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were the dark ages. They were burying the children. They were worshipping the idol. They were complete. Humanity was absolutely lost into the darkest period of human civilization in Arabia at that time. Persian Empire and the Roman empires were at that time, and there was no humanity left anywhere. And in those thickest and the darkest of times, Sayyidi Rasulullah came. And did people accept him, recognized him? No, people threw stones at him. People attacked him, insulted him, drove him out of Makkah, his own place where he was born. Of 13 years of Meccan period, if you look at it, it's just trial, tribulation, persecution, brutalities against a small band of people who started to follow the leader who had emerged. It's the leader who created the environment. The environment did not create the leader. The leader, his vision, his spirituality, his passion, all the criteria of leadership that we have just discussed, his vision, people were in love with him, madly in love with him, willing to die for him. And mashallah, he had that spiritual soul, he had the vision, and then he started to change the environment around him. He created the environment himself. The environment did not help in any way. No environment, circumstances, the people of the tribes were there to help him. Through his power of persuasion, through power of spirituality, through power of his vision, through power of his ideology that he had, he was able to change the environment to what he wanted it to be. And this is how the leaders are. Leaders never depend on the nation or the circumstances. They create the circumstances which they want to achieve. They say the best way to predict the future is to create it yourself. And that's what the leaders do. They create the future themselves. They don't have to predict, they don't have to show somebody their hands to know what will be the future. They create it what they want it to be.
Sir, what is the, in your opinion, what is the importance and significance of leadership for a nation?
Better, the significance of a head in a human body. What is the significance of head in a human body? If a person becomes brain dead, you call him dead, even if his person is alive. He may be breathing, he may still be alive, his soul would be in him, he would still be, his pulse would still be running. But if he becomes brain dead, he's like, he's a brain dead person. Technically, doctors call him dead. So similarly, this is exactly the example of a nation also. A nation which has leadership like we have today. Nation leadership which we had, for example, in the past in Baghdad or in Andalusia, which could not handle the responsibilities of the time. The Baghdad was decimated by Halaku Khan. You remember the stories when Halaku Khan came from this side. And the entire Muslim civilization was burnt to ashes. There was leadership at that time. Caliph was there, ministers were there, governors were there, generals were there. But those were brain dead. They could not conceive the responsibilities. They could not conceive the threats. They were not spiritual people. They could not galvanize the people to come around them. As a result, the whole civilization was destroyed. This is the problem. Someone has said that if 100 wise people die, that they do not cause so much damage to a nation than one idiot becoming their ruler. When a foolish man, an idiot man, a stupid man, a man with no vision, no spirituality, no nigah buland, no sukhand al-lawaz, and no jaan por soz becomes a leader, he kills the entire soul of the nation. He destroys the entire nation. And whenever you will find civilizations rising, they rise because of a leader like Huzur sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Usman, Sayyidina Ali. These were the most brilliant leadership. Men like Salahuddin Ayyubi, men like Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anhu. Those are the most brilliant men like Sultan Fateh, most brilliant leadership. Men like Mahmud Ghaznavi and Ghori and Abdali and Muhammad bin Qasim. I mean, these are the names of leadership that you want to see. Who created history, changed the course of history completely. They picked up impossible odds. People said can't be done. And they achieved it. One man, Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid, coming up from the deserts of Arabia, destroying the Persian and the Roman empires at the same time. Unbelievable. Unthinkable. He achieved it. This is leadership. And on the other hand, the Caliph of Baghdad, he had the entire civilization at his disposal. He had the armies, he had the ministers and the governors and the generals. They could not defend themselves against the wild hordes coming from Mongolia. Halaku Khan burned the entire Baghdad civilization to ground, destroying 400, 500 years of Muslim civilization literally to the ground. So, this is the impact of a leadership on a civilization. This Pakistan, we are the most richest country on this God's earth. Most brilliant potential that Allah has given, most educated people, rivers, natural resources. We are food surplus country. We produce our own food. So many countries of the world, they can't even produce their food. They have to import it. We have got enough water. We have got enough land. We have got enough mineral resources, gas, oil. Still, we are so disorganized, mismanaged, poor, begging other people. No self-respect. Our leaders are, why? That's the quality of the leadership. Because we have no leadership. After Khaja Azam, we never had a leadership. This country has almost been orphaned. For the last 70 years, we are an orphan country. And if this, you can see the brilliance of leadership in small departments. For example, if one department of Pakistan, atomic energy, where you had good leadership, they created miracles actually. World can't believe how Pakistan became a nuclear power. We have it. In so many other things, small departments, small organizations where you find good leadership, Pakistan is excelling, competing with the world. But when giving you just the example of, for example, hockey. In the 80s, Pakistan hockey was led by Air Marshal Noor Khan. He was a brilliant man. He led the Air Force brilliantly. He led the hockey brilliantly. And for every title in the world, whether it was Champions Trophy or Asian Trophy or World Cup, Pakistan had it. And after that, hockey was systematically destroyed. And today, you don't even know the names of the players. Because the whole institution of hockey was, which was Pakistan's national game, was decimated. Again, the same institution, same PIA. Once PIA was such finest airline in the world. The Emirates airline, which is considered the best in the world, was actually built by PIA. You won't believe it. It was PIA which built the Emirates airline. PIA which built the airlines of so many other countries. Countries would come to PIA and say, give us your pilots and managers, and we build our airlines. And PIA did and became American president and his wife would love to fly in PIA. Can you believe this? I mean, they would not fly in any other airline. Kennedy's wife would actually fly in PIA. She is the best airline in the world. And today, we are actually thinking of selling it off because it has become so. We are the same people, same country, same airline. What happened? Difference of leadership.
So do we need a leader already in the crisis, or do we need the situation is normal and everything is calm and cool? We still need a leader at that time?
Beta, you need a leader to build an empire. But as Iqbal says, maintaining the empire is even more difficult than building it. Because this is how the cycle goes. आओ तुम्हें सुनाएं तकदीर उमंग क्या है शमशीर और सना अव्वल ताउस और रुबाब आखिर. Iqbal has said, let us tell you the history of nations, how they rise and fall, how they build and how they are destroyed. They start with very powerful leadership, who were soldiers and who had vision and who had character. But in the end, they were led by weak, debauched, corrupt, incompetent idiots who destroyed their civilizations. This is what it means. आओ तुम्हें सुनाएं तारीफ उमंग क्या है शमशीर और सना अव्वल ताउस और रुबाब आखिर. In the end, they were just singing and dancing and wearing frocks. Or if you look at the Mughals, in the last, they're all wearing girly frocks. And the soldiers, Mahmud Ghaznavi and Ghori and Abdali and even Babur who came to India, I mean, they were swimming across rivers, they were riding horses without saddles. I mean, they were tough people. And Bahadur Shah Zafar and his Shahzade, all his princes, when the British army was entering Delhi, and when the royal house, when the princes were asked to run away because the British army is coming, they would not get off from their bed saying somebody should come and give us shoes. I mean, they had reached at such a level that they could not even wear their shoes to run. And ultimately, the British came and cut their necks, and that's what had to happen to them. So, this is what it is. You need a leadership to help you rise in a crisis, but then you need a bigger leadership to maintain you at the position of authority. Otherwise, incompetent people. Iqbal has said, if you want the sword of your father, I'm translating it in English. If you want the sword of your father, then you should also have the arm of your father. Now, you should also have the strength of your father. Otherwise, you will not get the sword which your father had to create the empires. You want the same glory, but you don't have the strength in your hands. How would you get it? So this is it. Beta, baat ye hai, the question that you've asked is that it's always the leadership, good leadership, which create other good leadership. A man who is incompetent, corrupt, afraid, weak, he will never allow good leadership to rise underneath him. You get my point? Giving the example of Sayyidi Rasulullah. Sayyidi Rasulullah's noble soul. He created the most brilliant leadership ever seen by humanity. Or if you pick up any Sahaba, I mean, Sayyidina Abu Bakr was a cloth seller. He would trade in cloth. He was a cloth merchant. But he became the greatest ruler of time when he was actually engaging the Persian and the Roman empires. Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Osman, Sayyidina Khalid, what was their background? They were traders, warriors, ordinary shepherds. What happened? The leadership transformed them into the greatest humans ever seen. Administrators, generals, rulers. So, who would change the circumstances to bring out a leader? Only a leader can change the circumstances. So, what happens is, sometime is the divine destiny of the providence, is the nature, fate, intervenes to create an environment through which a leader is produced. Iqbal defines it as fitrat khud karti hai lale ki hina bandi. The nature conspires, the nature creates an environment sometimes, because there are certain laws of nature, there are certain balancing factors, certain forces operate in nature, that good and evil, as one civilization, another civilization, they would always swing, but they will always exist. Like, for example, you cannot destroy Islam from this world. You cannot destroy Christianity from this world. They can be defeated in battles. Sometime Christianity would rise, sometime Islam would rise. But both religions, both civilizations have existed ever since we have come into this world. And you can see in nature also, when Muslims captured Spain, they had enough power that Muslims could capture England and France and Europe also. But divine will actually interfered and stopped Muslim in Spain and did not allow Muslims to go ahead of that, because otherwise there would not be any Christians left in the world. Similarly, when the Ottoman Empire was expanding from the eastern side, Eastern Europe, they were stopped at Vienna. They were so powerful they could actually capture Rome also, destroy Pope, the whole Pope and Christianity. But Allah stopped them there, because you can see the nature's hand manipulating, allowing one civilization to stay. So sometime nature, when Crusaders were so strong that they came and captured Jerusalem in the first Crusades, Muslim world was completely in disarray. I mean, they came, landed in Syria, captured Jerusalem, and there was nobody in the Muslim world who could rise, who could gather Muslim armies and defend and recapture Jerusalem again. For 90 years, Muslims had to wait. Then the circumstances, accidental circumstances you might seem to be, but they were not accidental, they were conspiracy of nature, that Allah created Salahuddin Ayyubi, and he went and he captured. So Salahuddin Ayyubi became Sultan of Egypt and Syria accidentally. The Ottoman Empire was created accidentally. And if you read the history of the Ottoman Empire, there was no reason why Ottoman Empire would be created. Mughal Empire was created accidentally. But you aptly call it accident, but it's not accident as we are saying. This is a conspiracy of nature. Babur, who created the Mughal Empire, was actually a ruler of Farghana in Uzbekistan. And there he had a fight with his uncles and family, and he was thrown out with his little army. He came to Afghanistan, he had no place to Afghanistan. He said, let's go to India. They went to India, and they came across Ibrahim Lodi, and they had a fight with him and defeated Ibrahim Lodi and became the ruler of India. So from small tribe which was thrown out of Central Asia, he turned out to become an emperor of India, accidentally. If he had no fight with his uncles in Uzbekistan, there would be no Mughal Empire. So this is what we are saying. So always some nature creates a balance. And whenever a civilization, in the darkest of times, when the Muslims were destroyed in India, for example, giving the example of India now, after the war of 1857, when Muslims were completely destroyed, for 1,000 years Muslims had ruled India, and then now the British were here, and Muslims were being crushed. There was no hope that Islam would survive in India. Out of nowhere, Allah created Allama Iqbal. And Allama Iqbal trained, then Allama Iqbal trained. One leader came, he trained another. And then of course both these men one gave a vision, other applied it, and they changed the destiny of this region. So this is how it happens. Whenever a civilization needs it, those leaders are produced, are given by the providence, by the nature, by the fate. Fitrat khud karti hai lale ki hina bandi.
What is the difference between leader and a leader maker? And can a leader become a leader?
The most beautiful example that you have said can be given of this is Dina of Allama Iqbal and Qaid Azam. Allama Iqbal was a leader in his own league, but also a leader maker. Qaid Azam was a leader, but he was not a leader maker. Qaid Azam did not create any more Qaid Azams. Allama Iqbal created Qaid Azam. You see, Maulana Shams Tabriz, he was a leader maker, but he was not a leader himself. He created Jalaluddin Rumi. And Jalaluddin Rumi then created more like him over hundreds of years. So it depends completely on what is the duty and role for that time. Allama Iqbal, as we said, was a leader in his own league. He was a politician also, he's a thinker, he's a visionary, he's an ideologue, he's a philosopher, he's a mujaddid of the time, a revivalist. All these attributes that Allama Iqbal had. But Iqbal had no country to rule. He had no government to rule. They were living in undivided India under the British rule. So he could not apply his leadership qualities and strength. You needed a country for that. So what he did, when he knew that he's going to die soon, so he died in 38. By that time, even Pakistan resolution was not even passed. So, but he infused this idea, created Qaid Azam, and said, now I'm dying, you take over the leadership from here. And then Qaid Azam created a country, and then did what a leader must do. But he had very little time. He had become very sick, very old at that time. And he did not have the time to produce more like him. But remember this, leader is always created through an ideology. The most brilliant example is of Sayyidi Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who brought in an ideology and created more leaders. But beyond that in history, you would find people who would sometimes bring ideology, sometimes they are leaders who were just like Salahuddin Ayyubi was a leader himself, but he did not bring any ideology. He was a leader of the time. After Salahuddin Ayyubi, there was nobody within the Ummah to defend the Ummah. And that's why Muslim historians have said that after the death of Khulafai Rashidin, the greatest loss that the Muslim Ummah has suffered is the death of Salahuddin Ayyubi. Because he was the greatest leader of the time, but there was nobody after him. And as a result, 50 years after Salahuddin Ayyubi's death, the whole Muslim world was again decimated, destroyed. Mongols came, destroyed Baghdad, burnt it down. As long as Salahuddin was there, nobody could do anything. He was fighting the Crusaders and Hashashins and Mughals and everybody.
You start that people need ideology to create leaders. So how do non-Muslims come up with such strong ideologies that they are creating exacting leaders nowadays and they are taking over all of the world?
Betajan, ideologies, whether it is religious, spiritual or secular, they all have the capacity to galvanize humans. Hitler was a powerful leader. He created the ideology of German race. Of Germans, we are the superior race and we will rule the world. All you need is some emotional, passionate slogans to ignite passion in people that they are willing to sacrifice themselves. And this is common between Muslims or non-Muslims or even Jews or Hindus. Narendra Modi is now igniting people on Hindu nationalism or Hindutva, and we'll greater Hindustan, greater India, and we'll rule from Malaysia to Kabul. We will create a greater India. Jewish Zionists are igniting passion in their own use on an ideology based on their history, saying that the greater Israel, will create a greater Israel civilization. And you see, what has happened is that Muslim civilization, remember this, in the last 300 years, Muslim civilization has been in decline. And the last 300 years has been the period of the rise of the Western civilization. So, this happens in history. It's nothing new. It has happened. So, the cycles of rise and fall of civilizations happen all the time. It does not mean there is any fault in Islam. It does not mean Christianity is superior to us. It simply means that these are the cycles that happen in the life of civilization, just like humans. Whether it's a Christian man or a Jewish man or a Hindu man or a Muslim man, the life cycle remains the same. You're born, you become a teenager, you become an old man, you become a young man, and then become a strong man and an old man, and then you die. Everybody, the same cycle applies in every human life, irrespective of your religion or area where you're born in the world. Similarly for civilizations also. There was time when Roman and Persian empires, after hundreds of years of strength, were decaying. And that was the time when Islamic civilization was rising, and that's why the powerful ideology destroyed both and created an Islamic civilization. In Andalusia, when Muslims went in, we created a civilization for 800 years. Why? Because the Christian civilization there were decadent, was actually on the fall. Khilafat Usmaniya, when they stayed for 500 years, 600 years. Why? Because they became the most powerful civilization, because they were on the rise, they rose and they became the strongest civilization of the time. The Umayyads and the Abbasis, they collapsed. After rising, ruling for a few hundred years, they collapsed. Today, the Byzantine Empire, whose capital was Constantinople, which was captured by Sultan Muhammad Fateh, the city was not captured for the last 2000 years. It was the strongest center of the Eastern Christian church, but then Salahuddin Ayyubi came, Sultan Muhammad Fateh came and captured it. And today that city is again in the Muslim hands. So this is a natural cycle of civilization, Muslims or non-Muslims. The laws of nature are same, whether they are for Muslims or they are for non-Muslims. If you do not respond to the needs of the time, if you do not educate yourself, if you do not arm yourself, if you do not organize yourself, if you do not give justice to your people, then you will be decimated by other civilizations which are stronger. And this is a simple rule of nature. It has nothing to do with Islam or non-Muslim. As we said, everybody grows old, everybody dies. This is the human nature. And civilizations also rise and fall on the same laws.
So it needs to be powerful. It's not supposed to be ethical and logical to bring this power.
You see, for Muslims, ideology has to be moral and spiritual. That's why Iqbal had said he has to be a spiritual soul. Only a spiritual being would bring a spiritual ideology. And Iqbal has said very clearly also, if you take out the spirituality from the politics, it will only become violence. It will only become the doctrine of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is a very apt example of this. Because they were almost animals. They were not even humans. I mean, they came out from Mongolia. They had no ideology. They had no God to fear. They had no morals, no ethics, no morality, no dignity, no decency. They were just animals riding the horsebacks. Millions of them just came out of Mongolia and decimated and destroyed everything. They burnt libraries. They destroyed museums. They killed women and children. They made mountains out of the heads of the people they would kill. No morality. But what happened? They were a powerful military force, but they had no spirituality and no morality. So when they came in contact with Islam, the ideology of Islam was so powerful. Actually, all Mongols became Muslims. Iqbal has said a very beautiful poetry on this. Kaabe ko mil gaye paas ma sanam khane se. Okay, and then all the empires which you nowadays you hear as greatest Muslim empires, whether they're Ottoman Empire or Temurian Empire or the Mughal Empire, they are all the descendants of Mongols, all the descendants of Tatars and Genghis Khan. So it proves very clearly that even if you build mighty empires on the basis of your military force, if you do not have an ideology, sooner or later you will be either destroyed or some powerful ideology is going to take over you. This is what Islam did. Islam is not just a military force. We are much stronger ideology actually. Islam is an ideology. And it was this ideology which was, when this ideology clashed with the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire, which were godless, which were secular, which were cruel, which were brutal, which were enslaving humanity for hundreds of years, the difference between spirituality and morality was so intense. The entire population of Iraq and Syria and Persia and those regions which were under Persian and the Roman empires, and even in North Africa, when they saw Islam at that time as such high moral ideology, the entire population converted to Islam. You can't convert millions of people by sword. They were not converted by sword. All Islam did was Muslim armies only removed the political and cruel military governors and rulers. And rest of the ideology, people accepted it themselves. And that's what happened. So, ideologies play an extremely important role in mobilizing nations and creating leaders. The only difference is that if the ideology is secular and godless and cruel and brutal, then it will only spread anarchy and chaos like Hitler did, like Americans and the NATO is doing today. They are very powerful countries, but all what they do is they simply destroy and decimate humanity and civilization. They have not brought any moral or human values with them. Where Islam would go, it would always bring human and moral values with itself. It became a more powerful ideology.
Sir, is religion an one trait or can a person change required a business quality?
Betajan, there are certain leaders who are God gifted, as you say. They are born with it. For example, all prophets were born with it, with this quality. But then, as we had said, it is the quality of great leadership that he creates great leaders. And if you look at the example of the Islamic history, Prophet ﷺ created Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman and Ali Ridwan Allah Ajmain. One needs to have a potential, there is no doubt about this. And this is the quality of the great leadership, is that he polishes up that potential. Like for example, and he sees the potential, he identifies the potential, which man can be used where. For example, Sayyidi Rasulullah did not create Khalid bin Walid to be a Khalifa. Khalid bin Walid was polished and created to be a general. Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu was created and polished to become an administrator. Hazrat Abu Bakr Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu was polished to become a thinker, ideologue, philosopher, administrator. His qualities were different. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu was different from Umar. Umar was different from Usman. Usman was different from Ali. Everybody had their own attributes and qualities which were polished, which were refined. And every man was deployed accordingly, his own resources, his own potential. This is what leadership does. A brilliant leadership will identify the potential in the people around him and then polish them, develop them. But it's not easy to do that, because somebody has to be literally on the footprints of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be on the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be able to identify the quality, the class, the caliber, the attributes of the people around him, so that they can be trained accordingly. It's a nation building. That's why we say it's not an easy process. It takes generations, it takes time, it takes powerful ideology. This is the crisis that you see in Pakistan today, that we have emphasized on building roads and bridges and motorways, but we have not emphasized on building our nation. We have not emphasized on building the quality and the character of our people. We have not emphasized on bringing the best out of our children, to turning them into leaders who would lead the world in the coming days. So, unfortunately, the process of nation building has not been done. Nation is built. Leaders can be trained. Leaders can be created. But then they need a very thorough process of training and tarbiyat and tazkiyah. And these are the terms that Quran uses for training somebody into becoming a leader, who is able to create more leaders. It's like a teacher producing, there are lots of students in a class, but a teacher picks up a few and trains them even more. So those students become teachers themselves tomorrow. And then they produce more students who become, so it's a cycle that continues generations after generation. When the nation stops producing leaders, this is the time when they start to decay and fall. Rise and fall of the civilization, we'll study this. When the nations continue to produce leaders, continue to train them for leadership, those nations continue to rise. The day they stop producing leaders, the day the student is worse than the teacher, that is the time when the decay starts. Student must always be better than the teacher. When Muslims did that, because if the students are not better than the teacher, they will not be able to take the responsibilities of the future times. They have to. That's why you have more research. They have new innovations, new development, new research. Why? Because whatever the teacher had done, the students picked up from there and built more, did more research, did more, produced more. And so this kind of system must exist, that a good teacher produces even more brilliant students who become teachers in their own kind, in their own league, and continue the cycle. That's why Allama Iqbal, when so many students came to Iqbal advised them that not just gain knowledge, but also produce knowledge. You should not be the ones who are reading books, but should be the ones who are writing them too. Your reading books are written by somebody, right? Why don't your universities, our education system, produce students who become the writers, whose books are taught in the universities? It's not happening, isn't it? So that's why this is the major problem in our education system, that we are not producing leaders.
But the sad aspect is, we believe that leaders can be trained to become leaders, and there are people who are incapable, but if for this opportunity, they say we are getting training to be a leader and we will be the leader.
But as they say, the taste of the pudding is in its eating. A leader is not something which can remain hidden. As we said, every day in life, in every crisis, in every test, a leadership is exposed. In army, for example, when the battle starts, that is where you actually get to know which officer is brave, which officer is coward, which Jawan can fight, which general is more mature. It's actually the heat of the battle that decides. So test. That's why you have tests in the class. We tell you which student is more understanding of the subject or not. In every crisis, today for example, PIA is in a crisis. You have a leadership in PIA today, but they can't pull PIA out of it. So that's a test that they are incapable. But if somebody comes in the PIA and turns PIA into a profitable organization, it's a clear sign that he's a good leadership. So a leadership cannot remain hidden. A leadership shows the way he speaks, the way people love him, the way his character shows. And as we said, the first answer to my first question that you asked was that a leadership has to have that quality that people fall in love with them. And a hypocrite, a person who's trying to pretend to be a leader, but he's actually a hypocrite, a coward, a miser, a snake, a betrayer, will be exposed very soon. Are all our political leaders? Do you respect any political leader that we have? You don't. They're not leaders. You don't respect because they are exposed. But you respect Salahuddin Ayyubi, you respect Qaid Azam, you respect Iqbal. Why do you respect them? Because they have proven through their life that they deserve to be respected. They have achieved what nobody else in the world could achieve. So it's the actions, it's the results which will define whether he was a good leader or not. And especially, as we said, the best of the leadership is produced in the darkest of times. That is the time when nobody takes the risk. When they are good times, everybody comes and wants to take the power. But imagine if there's a war going on and there's a threat and a crisis and everything is falling apart. No coward, no snake, no treacherous, no immoral person would like to become a leader, because that is the time he knows he can't handle it. Only a man with character would actually make a stand, would be the last man standing, would invite the nation around him, come, give them hope and faith, unite them, give them an ideology. This is exactly what Allah has wanted.
But there are some people who try to use the idea that politicians and leaders are synonyms, although they are not. But whenever you think about this, the first idea comes into your mind is this.
No, beta, that's what you're right. These politicians, these are not leaders. These are political gamblers.
When we had this discussion in the class of leadership, students were given the example, of politicians, although this is so lame, but people are not seeing in this mind.
But the system is such that these people come into power by default. Asif Zardari, is he a leader? What has he done to be a leader? Altaf Hussain, is he a leader? The mafia lords. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, that Astaghfirullah al-Azim, is he a leader? What has he sacrificed for this nation? What is his qualification? What crisis that he has gone through for the nation, that he has helped the nation to come out of it? They're born with golden and silver spoons in their mouth. The whole existence is based on haram wealth, ill-gotten wealth. They are absolutely nothing in common with this nation. They can't speak Urdu. They can't speak the languages. They don't know any ideology except serving their own petty selfish interests. We are saying, beta, the standard of leadership that we see around is so low, is so shameful, so petty that we have actually forgotten what a great leadership is. This is the unfortunate part. We think Zardari and Nawaz Sharif and Altaf Hussain and Fazlur Rahman is the leadership that we have. These are not the leadership. These are the curse of God that upon us. When these kind of leadership are there, then the nations are destroyed. When Halaku Khan came to destroy Baghdad, a woman from Muslim woman said to Halaku Khan that, may Allah's curse be upon you. And Halaku laughed and said, I am the Allah's curse that Allah has sent upon you. Because you people are so corrupt and coward and so stupid that Allah doesn't need you now. So He has sent me to destroy you. And that's what He did. So the leadership that we have today is actually a curse of God upon us. The leadership that we are talking about, the leadership of Iqbal, leadership of Qaid Azam, leadership of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Umar and Usman and Ali and Khalid bin Walid and Saad bin Abi Waqas and Amr bin As and Sultan Muhammad Fateh and Mahmud Ghaznavi and Ghori and Abdali and Muhammad bin Qasim, and these people have no clue what we are talking about. There was such gorgeous, magnanimous leadership, beautiful leadership. These petty insects on the ground have no idea what leadership is all about. You think Zardari has anything common? Does he even know what Khalid bin character of and dignity and ghairat of Khalid bin Walid is?
I don't even know.
He even knows his name. So this is the unfortunate part. This is the unfortunate part, that we are led by rascals, we are led by crooks, third-rate thieves actually, mafia gang lords, and we think they are the leaders. They are the curse of God upon us. And if Allah has any good for this nation, you will actually, inshallah, see all these leadership will be buried deep into the ground, and Allah will give us people like Qaid Azam, Salahuddin Ayyubi, and Muhammad bin Qasim, inshallah.
What are the circumstances which cause the failure of the leader?
Corruption, moral corruption. It all starts from corruption. आओ सुमे सुनाए शमशीर तारीख उमम क्या है शमशीर सना अव्वल ताउस रुबाब आखिर. First it's moral corruption, then it's financial corruption, then it is spiritual corruption, then it's decadence. When the leadership starts to give priority towards himself and he starts to ignore his people,
Then he no longer needs the leader.
all the people who have ruling us today are exactly of the same category. And when this starts, when the person starts to become morally and spiritually corrupt, financially corrupt, that is the beginning of the downfall of a leader. All our good leaders used to be extremely careful about the fact that while they are in power, they should not accumulate wealth. Salahuddin Ayyubi, he was the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, and when he died, he did not have money for his burial, not even for his coffin. His friends gathered, collected some few riyals and dirhams and dinars so that Sultan could be buried, because he had given out all his wealth. And today our leaders are the richest in the world, and the nation is dying hungry. This is the difference. Sayyidina Umar, when Sayyidina Abu Bakr passed away, he would only take few dirhams every day for his pocket money from Baitul Mal, and when he passed away, he ordered his sons to whatever property I have, sell it and return this amount back into the Baitul Mal. I don't want to take money, to take stipend, salary for the duty of Sayyidi Rasulullah that I did. Imagine the character. As Umar started to cry, he says, what standard Abu Bakr are you setting? How can we meet that standard? You're creating difficulty for us. Sayyidina Umar saying this to Sayyidina Abu Bakr. You're creating problems for us. You only take 1 dirham or 2 dirham every day, and now you're saying after you pass away, all the money should be refunded to the Baitul Mal. And it's like saying, as a person saying that I served Pakistan government for 30 years, and when I return all my salaries of 30 years back to the Pakistan government because I want to work free for Pakistan. Can anybody even think of doing that? No. Unbelievable. Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, how much salary did he take? Do you know that? 1 rupee. And all your major universities in Pakistan, whether it is Islamia University, Peshawar, Punjab University, or Bhagalpur University, the land that these universities have been purchased and bought by Qaid-e-Azam from his own pocket money, from his own bonds. He's a wealthy man, he's a rich man. And he spent his money on Pakistan.
So being rich is good for a leader.
You see, being rich is no problem. Being corrupt is a problem. See, Sayyidina Usman was a rich man, but he's called Ghani. Sayyidina Usman Ghani, why do we call it? Because he spent all his wealth on the Ummah, on the Muslim. Qaid-e-Azam was a rich man, but he spent all his wealth on Pakistan. Zardari is a rich man, but he's a rascal. Nawaz Sharif is a rich man. They are rascals. They are in power. It is haram for a Muslim ruler to do his own private business when he is a ruler. And all these rulers, they use the state power and authority to get contracts and projects for own private companies. They become billionaires. When they were not in the government, you look at their financial status. And since 1986 and 1987, Nawaz Sharif family has come into the power. You look at the wealth they have accumulated every year, increasing by billions of dollars. Where are they getting this wealth from? Because they are in power, the ministers, the chief minister, and the prime minister, they have the authority to take every contract they want in the country. Nobody can say a thing. This is corruption. Sayyid Salahuddin Ayyubi never did that. Sayyidina Usman never did that. Qaid-e-Azam never did that. Qaid-e-Azam, even if he would buy a chair for his personal use, he would pay from his pocket. How many of our leaders would do that? They spend billions from the state resources, consider it as their mal-e-muft. It's our property and right to, in fact, one minister even said the other day on television, it's our right to do corruption.
But there were exactly the leaders who had said that Pakistan was the most amazing leader, but he failed at the
That's not the point, beta. Failure is not defined by victory in battle or not. Failure is how he lived. He lived like a lion. He said, "Sher ki ek din ki zindagi ki ki 100 saal ki zindagi se behtar." Everyone dies in the end. Dying doesn't mean failure. It's how you die. सलाहुद्दीन अय्यूबी died in the battle, died a shaheed death. शेर की एक दिन की जिंदगी ईदड़ की 100 साल की जिंदगी से बेहतर होती है. He lived one day, lived like a lion, lived with dignity, died with honor. That's courage. But then Mir Jafar and Mir Sadiq lived like kings after that, after the betrayal that they did, Rajibur. But then what happened? Nange millat, nange qawm, they humiliated, disrespected, used as their name has become cursed in human history. They lived like kings, so that's not criteria. This is the quality of a leadership, that it lives with dignity, and when the time comes, it dies with honor. That's leadership.
So what kind of unexpected obstacles do you face in the mission of a leader?
You're asking me personally? With all kinds of. You see, whenever you start to challenge the present system, the whole system will come down crashing upon you. We have the example of Sayyidi Rasulullah's mission. How did the Meccans, how did the Mushrikeen treated Sayyidi Rasulullah and the Sahabas in the mission at that time? As we said, they were persecuted to the extreme limit. Cases were filed on them. They were put in jail. Stones were thrown at them. They were exiled. I mean, everything you can think of. They were killed. And almost exactly everything has been done with us also. We started to give our azan 7 years ago when whole Pakistan was in complete darkness, despondency. There were violence and terror going on our streets. Pakistan was actually losing the war. We were about to become Iraq and Syria that you see them today. Disintegrated, decimated, destroyed. And of course, the people who were doing that, people who were destroying Pakistan, were within our government, were part of the political process, were part of the media, were part of the judiciary. They were part of the Pakistan's power structure. And they were terrorists also, but they were also the Prime Minister and the President I'm fighting. So when you start to speak against them, right from the terrorist on ground, the TTP or the BLA or the MQM, up to the Chief Justice Iftikhar Chaudhry and President Zardari, all and Geo Group, they are most powerful people in the country. They all came down crashing upon us, obviously. So there were cases filed against me, murder cases were registered against me. I mean, they tried to arrest me, get me killed so many times. They put a ban on me from coming on the media for so many years. I couldn't come on the media such a long time. And they attacked my faith, calling me a Qadiani or a Kafir. They attacked my finances, blocking my contracts and business deals, trying to crush us financially. They attacked my family, they attacked me personally. I mean, every conceivable threat that you can think of is still being done. But Alhamdulillah, we accept these risks. We know that whenever you stand for higher values, whenever you stand for a cause, whenever you stand for the nation and the ummah and the millat, these tests and trials and exams and tribulations, they come. And if you are not able to take them, if you expect that everybody will respect you, throw flowers at you, give you respect, then you should not start such a mission. To start such a mission, you should be mentally very prepared. They're going to throw stones at you. They're going to try to kill you. They're going to destroy you. Because the status quo, the kufr, will never accept. They will never accept a new revolutionary voice rising from within them, which will challenge their status quo. And that's what the Quraysh of Makkah used to say to Sayyidi Rasulullah. When Sayyidi Rasulullah used to say to them, "Qul la ilaha illallah tuflihu," say la ilaha illallah, you will be blessed. Kamyab ho jaoge. And they would say, we have no problem in saying la ilaha illallah, but we understand when we say that, means the whole system will be destroyed and a new system will emerge where we will not be in control, where we will not have the power, and the rule will belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to us, not to Quraysh, or not to the pagans, not to Abu Jahl or Abu Lahab. So the powerful rulers and leaders of that time would always take a new ideology as a threat, and our azan is also a threat for them. There's no doubt about this. We have attacked every enemy at the same time. We have attacked TTP, we attacked BLA, we attacked the corrupt judiciary, we have attacked powerful Pakistani political parties, we attacked the government. I mean, nobody in Pakistan attacks so many enemies at the same time. We are the only ones who have done it. And of course, there's a cost to pay, and we are very happy to pay that.
And when you face requests from people among your own forces, is it something surprising for you?
It's not. It's expected again, you see. Whenever an army goes to war, you will always have betrayals within its ranks. This is an understood fact. It happened with Sayyidi Rasulullah also. Remember in the Battle of Uhud, 1,000 Muslims left Medina to go for the Battle of Uhud. 300 came back, led by Abdullah bin Ubay. He was a munafiq, he was a hypocrite. He betrayed right in the middle of the battle. And imagine, the forces are lined up, Muslims are ready to fight the enemy and all. And suddenly you find 300 people leaving your ranks and going back and saying we are not fighting. Imagine the betrayal. Imagine the crisis, imagine the emotional setback that the whole Muslim army would have felt. What happened? 300 of us leaving. But this is the quality of leadership. No, we tell the rest of the forces, don't worry, we'll still fight, we'll gather, reorganize, replan, adjust. This is what the leadership quality is, that you're able to take the pressures, able to adjust to the changing circumstances, able to adjust to the betrayals. Because betrayals are always most unexpected. Nawab Sirajuddaulah was betrayed in the heat of the battle. He couldn't survive. He was captured. He died. Salahuddin Tipu Sultan was betrayed in the heat of the battle. He died fighting. Sayyidi Rasulullah was betrayed in the heat of the battle. He reorganized, regrouped, rearranged his forces and fought back again. Managed. No issue. So, Salahuddin Ayyubi had to face so many betrayals within his own ranks. So many betrayals within his own ranks. It always happens. So you have to kill the hypocrites, you have to kill the traitors, you have to find the fifth columnists, the hashashins, the assassins, the enemies within and the enemies outside. Pakistan is facing the same problem today. We have the Geo Media Group, we have the politicians, we have the TTP, we have panelists and the anchors, Chief Justice Takhar Chaudhry, former Chief Justice, all traitors within our own ranks, all enemies of Pakistan in very powerful positions, and you had to fight all of them. But now, alhamdulillah, as you say, the power of ideology and the passion, our sincerity for the country, alhamdulillah, is seen by the majority of the patriots, seen by the country, seen by the leadership now. And alhamdulillah, people are beginning to realize that whatever Zaid Sahib has been saying the last 7 years is actually happening, is actually true. Whatever he's been saying is now turning out to be, even the blind man can see. He had been warning us for so many years and we were stupid enough not to listen to him. And now more and more people are listening, alhamdulillah. You see the Geo has been defeated, TTP has been defeated, BLA has been defeated, MQM is being nailed and defeated. Everybody knows the corrupt political leadership is exposed. So whatever we have been saying for years now, alhamdulillah, we have been vindicated now, and the new army leadership is accepting that Pakistan is under attack in this new 4th and 5th generation war. And now, mashallah, they're developing a brilliant, excellent response. The best leadership that we had in 15 years in Pakistan Army is now today. General Rahil and General Rizwan, mashallah, leading the attack. And we are fully supporting them. And the patriots are happy now, alhamdulillah, to whatever is happening in the country. We're cleaning up the country now. The darkest of times are behind us now. Inshallah, future, inshallah, there is all bright and khair. But of course, we have to go a long, long way. We cannot be casual now. Enemy is not finished yet. It has been defeated, but not finished yet. So we have to keep pushing it. We have to reorganize, regroup. Again, as we said, we need brilliant, strong, tough leadership. Somebody like Sayyidina Umar, somebody like Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz, somebody like Salahuddin Ayyubi, somebody like Sultan Fateh, somebody like Khalid bin Walid. These are our heroes of leadership. Our leadership criteria is not Zardari or Nawaz Sharif or Altaf Hussain or Fazlur Rahman. These are, as we said, are the curse on this nation. These are not the solutions. These are the problems. They cannot give you any solution, any hope, ever.
At certain time, everyone has to work with person. There will be serious clash of personality. How do you handle a situation where there is mutual dislike?
But this is a very natural process. Human beings, whenever they are interacting together, they would have different natures, different opinions, different personalities, different response to a common problem, and clashes would occur. It happens in the family, it happens in the workplace, it happens in a nation. It's a natural process, it's a natural cycle. You cannot have an ideal environment, everybody is happy, hunky-dory, talking to each other. And again, this is where the quality and character of leadership comes. Even in the time of Sayyidi Rasulullah, there were times when Muhajirin and Ansar became against each other. There were problems, but there were differences within Sahabas also. How did Sayyidi Rasulullah handle it? It is the trust on the leadership. It is the love and respect of the leadership which tells the followers to drop their opinion and accept the judgment of the leadership. Remember when Sayyidi Rasulullah did Sulh Hudaybiyah, and Muslims could not enter Makkah at that time. And Sayyidi Rasulullah says that we are going to go back to Medina and slaughter our animals outside Makkah. The Sahaba was so stunned that nobody moved. And Sayyidi Rasulullah gave the orders to slaughter your animal. And Sahaba said, everybody was stunned. They said, you promised us that we will go into Makkah and we are not going to Makkah. And Sayyidi was so sad that nobody moved. And Sayyidi came back to his tent, and one of the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, his wives were there, and she said, Sayyidi, Sahabas are in shock. So you go and slaughter your animal. And once you do that, all the Sahabas will start to do that again. So Sayyidi went out, slaughtered his animal, and then Sahabas saw Sayyidi has done it, so everybody got up and did it. But nobody objected. Nobody said a word. They were stunned, they were shocked. It was an impossible thing for them to accept. But the love and respect and adab of Sayyidi Rasulullah was so intense that even if he told them impossible things to do, ultimately they respectfully followed. This is the quality of leadership. So incredible tests will come. Impossible decisions will have to be taken. But this is where you have to trust someone. You have to trust your leadership. That they are not, even if they are taking decisions which you find it impossible to accept, this is something that everybody must understand, that if the leadership is there, leadership is united, leadership is respected, that leadership can keep the community together. In the army, leadership decides who lives, who dies. I mean, you send them to people to fight, you tell somebody to go and risk your life, he risks his life, he dies just on the order of his officers, on the orders of his commanders. This can only happen when you have blind trust on your leadership. And so this kind of discipline you need in the nation also. When you trust Qaid-e-Azam, and Qaid-e-Azam used to make speeches in the tribal areas, and all the Pashtun tribes would not understand a word. He would speak in English. And when people would ask those Pashtun tribes, do you understand what he's saying? The tribes would say, we don't understand a word, but we know whatever he's saying is truth and we'll follow it. See, this was the level of trust. So leadership, even if you don't understand him, must have so much of charisma, so much of magic in him that people are able to follow blindly. And that is the only way that he can overcome the differences of tribe, color and ethnicity and language and personal divisions. This is what the whole country's society and civilization is all about. Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala ruled a government which was stretching almost from China to Europe. So many types of people living in it. But you see not a single act of violence or disturbance or problem in the entire Muslim world. Why? Because everybody knew that the leader has a very strong discipline and everybody loved and respected him.
So when taking decisions, a leader is not supposed to be flexible to accommodate other people's interests also?
A leadership has to be merciful. A leadership has to be visionary. A leadership has to be magnanimous. And a leadership has to be a fatherly figure. These are the qualities. So sometimes the father beats up his son and sometimes he forgives him. So that's how the father does it. In every home, sometimes the father becomes harsh and sometimes he's not. Because if you know that he loves you like a dad, then you accept everything he says. Sometimes he grounds you, sometimes he gives you a mobile phone, sometimes he takes it away, sometimes he gives you a car, sometimes he takes it away. Because this is the way parents, that's how a good loving father will manage his children. And a good leader is always going to be like a loving dad to his community, to his people. He'll be very harsh with them when it comes to matter of discipline and morality. And he'll be extremely loving for them when it comes to being in their tarbiyat and training and fatherly figure is concerned. There's a balance that you have to maintain. A good dad in any home would do what a good leader would do to his nation. A leader always treats his nation like his own children.
So a leader is supposed to be considerate about the response of people towards decisions, or is he supposed to be ignorant?
Again, it depends. It depends on circumstances. Sayyidi Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has given us both the examples. We just gave you the example where a right thing had to be done even if the people did not accept it. He did it and the people had to follow him. He did not say, I have to follow the people, I have to ask the people, what would people say? A leader never say that, what would people say? He does what is right. He tells the people this is right and you must do it. And on some time, but leadership also should realize, Sayyidi Rasulullah has given us this from his sunnah as well, that if the certain decisions are too hard for people to accept, he delays them, pens them, prepares the people more so that they are able to accept the decisions that are coming to them. He should not burden his people too harshly. He should not burden them with weight that they cannot carry. So this is the harshness is never the sign of a good leader. A good leader is always soft, merciful, benevolent, tolerant, and forgiving. Sayyidina Umar seems to be hard, seems to be tough commander and general, very hard in applying the rules, but the same Hazrat Umar who cries like a baby when he sees some children crying, and he carries food for them on his own back, and he walks around in the street of Medina asking people if they have everything or not, looking around. So this balance is always needed. You cannot be harsh only, you cannot use your stick all the time, and you cannot be so soft that people start taking you for granted. The leadership is the name of balance, a balance between very strong discipline applied with benevolence, mercy, and tolerance. And this is something that comes naturally to a leader. And this is the difference between a leader and a follower. A leader can do it, a follower can't.
Sir, as a leader, a person has to be very versatile and multitasking. What steps do you personally take when your work tasks are falling behind?
So, there is no doubt that leader has to do multitasking, and the most important thing is that multitasking is a very stressful job. It's something you have to do so many works together, and it's very easy to get irritated, angry, and jittery and nervous. And this is the difference between a good leader and an ordinary person, is that a good leader has strong nerves. He's able to control his nerves, he's able to control his temper, he's able to control his voice. You see many leaders, or you see in many television programs, that when a person tries to do multitasking, or a person tries to make his people do things and not doing it, he starts to scream and shout and become nervous wreck himself and become disbalanced emotionally. This is the sign of a weak man. A leader will never break things, a leader will never throw things on the wall, a leader will never scream, and he will never lose his nerves. When you see these things, somebody is doing this, realize that he's an incapable man, not capable enough, not strong enough. He does not have strong nerves to take the role of a leadership. A leader needs to be organized. He needs to organize his time properly, because a disorganized, uncoordinated man would always be in a mess. He would not be able to do multitasking. A leader has to be punctual in time. Punctuality is a very, very critical factor. A man who is not punctual about time, a man who is not concerned about time. Even our deen gives us punctuality in matters of time. You pray Fajr at a particular time, Zohar at a particular time, Asr at a particular time. You cannot say it. You cannot confuse the timings. They have to be very punctual. Everything is defined. You get up in the morning, you sleep at this time, you do pray Zohar, pray Asr, pray Jummah. Our religion is designed around proper timing. And the quality of leadership is that he's very well disciplined in his personal life, in his personal food, in his personal sleep, in his personal rest, in dividing time between his work and family and personal self. Your body has right on you, your family has right on you, your duty has right on you. He's not an imbalanced man. He is not somebody who is lopsided. He is not somebody who is not able to maintain the balance of all the duties that he has. Multitasking is not simply doing 5 works, it also means 5 different responsibilities: family, personal life, his parents, towards his children, towards his nation, towards his country, towards his faith. All these responsibilities have to be done at the same time. So, as we said, I would recommend you all to read about the life and how they worked, about the great leadership that we had in the past. Read about Qaid-e-Azam, how he managed his time, how he managed his people. One of the most brilliant examples of leadership in the modern times is Qaid-e-Azam. Read about Khalid bin Walid, read about Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Usman, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidi Rasulullah himself, above all. Those people who created civilizations, who created empires, who created, societies which after hundreds of years are still applicable and leaving their impact. Great leadership is something we all desire these days. We don't have great leadership in these times. This is the unfortunate part. And if you look around, that's why people say if we don't have Zardari and Nawaz Sharif, let's accept Imran Khan. You know, they are compromises. Nations are not built like this. There cannot be a compromise in nation building. There cannot be a compromise in leadership. You cannot say, if we can't have Zardari and Nawaz Sharif, let's go for Fazlur Rahman or Altaf or Imran Khan. They're all petty leadership. They're not great leadership at all. They're not visionaries. They're not those who can build a nation and a civilization. They have no comparison whatsoever with the great leaders that we had in the past. So one thing that we must accept within ourselves is, if you don't have great leadership, let's become one. Why don't you become a great leader? Why every person can try to develop those habits within himself, the values, honor, character, courage, dignity, magnanimity, vision, knowledge. Read your elders, read Quran, read Sunnah, read Iqbal. Be the leader yourself. If Iqbal had waited that somebody else would come and revive this nation, then we were done. Then there would not be anybody else. Iqbal didn't wait for anyone. He did it himself. There was a need. Somebody has to revive this sleeping nation. So what he did? He started to give azan. And he created leadership. He revived a nation, gave an ideology and a vision. And today, mashallah, entire continent was divided and Pakistan was created, the greatest Muslim nation on earth today, because of the vision of one man, because he did not wait for another leader to come. He became the leader and created a leader. And this is what our generation has to do. When I talk to children, they say, sir, we are waiting for a good leader to come. And I feel very sad. And I feel very sad. And I say, why don't you become one? And I say, and they go in a state of disbelief. Can we become leaders? I said, who else is going to be? Who else is going to come? It's our future generations. You people have to lead the Muslim Ummah tomorrow. There will be people like you, children like you. So why can't it be you? So this is the important part. We have to tell our children, tomorrow you have to take the responsibility. That's why Iqbal said, sabak phir par sadaqat ka, adalat ka, shujaat ka, liya jayega, tujhse kaam duniya ki imamat ka. If you realize your responsibility, you will train for it. When a soldier goes into the army, he knows what he has to do, but he is not trained. So they put him through a rough training process. I mean, they really drill you through. I mean, they really break your back. But then after the training process of 6 months, 1 year, when you come out of the academy, you are a chiseled, beautiful, young soldier, fighting machine, who's able to do his job, which before entering the academy, he was just a stupid kid. You know, that's how they do. They take stupid kids and turn them into solid fighting machines. So what do? They train them. So this is what needs to be done. We need to take our entire youth of our nation, these stupid innocent youth, put them through a training process and turn them into leaders who can lead the Muslim Ummah tomorrow. Inshallah, it can be done and will be done, because we don't have any other youth. It's you people who we have. We have to invest on you.
So who has been ideal leader in Muslim and non-Muslim history?
Better an ideal leader, they can't be any better than Sayyidi Rasulullah himself. What other example can we give you? I mean, in every aspect, balance his family life and a private life and mission and duty and emotional, nigah buland, sukhand al-nawaz, jaan par soz. You pick up any attribute, who can be better than Sayyidi Rasulullah? All other leaders in the world would only you find, if there is any good in them, if there is any khair in them, if there is any magnanimity in them, that's the reflection of what Sayyidi Rasulullah already has. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Usman, Sayyidina Ali, they all have whatever goodness in them is because what they have absorbed from Sayyidi Rasulullah, what they have taken from Sayyidi Rasulullah. So, but as we said, if we come down to the 20th century, if we come down to modern times, you know, I would recommend Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali. I mean, when I read his lifestyle, life history, when I read how he transformed, the character that he shows, the dignity, uncorruptible, unpurchasable. This is the term that Allama Iqbal used for Qaid-e-Azam. He cannot be corrupted, he cannot be purchased by anyone. Rock solid. He would not sell the Muslims. He cannot be purchased. He cannot be afraid. He cannot be pushed around. He will never sell his dignity. And the leader who never sells his dignity will never sell the dignity of the nation. Remember this. So, Qaid-e-Azam.
And among the non-Muslims, who do you see as exemplary leaders?
See, there are many good leaders in the non-Muslims also who were good for their nation. Mao Zedong was a brilliant man. He was an honest, simple, hard-working man who lived within his people, who led a revolution, created a country. I mean, China became independent after Pakistan. But look today. Today China is giving us $46 billion loan and we are begging it become industrial power of the world. It transformed its civilization. Mao Zedong was definitely a good leader. And then you have, Fidel Castro was a good leader for his people. Simple, humble man. Cuba, small country, turned Cuba into a powerhouse. When we had, Cuba is a small island, when Pakistan had earthquake, can you believe how many doctors from Cuba came to serve Pakistanis? 500 doctors. 500 doctors from Cuba. We don't even know. And Cuba has the biggest medical industry. I mean, professional doctors. They serve all over the world. 500 doctors came as volunteer service to serve in Abbottabad and all these areas for our people. And Pakistanis didn't even say thank you to them. They came, they served, and they left. So that Cuba, imagine. And why? Because Fidel Castro is their leader who has turned their nation. And they still love and respect him. America has been trying to throw them off for 70 years. And Cubans are still there. So, so there are many. So even in non-Muslims, you have good leaders. But as we said, their goals are limited. I mean, without the understanding of Quran and Sunnah and the spiritual dimensions of Islam, you may be good for your people for a certain period, for certain things. You may make them economically stable, but you don't address their spiritual needs. You don't address the need of life after death. For a Muslim, an ideal leader is one who takes care of your dunya and takes care of your akhirah. The one who protects your life before death and takes care of your life after death. That is an ideal leader for Muslims, who not just takes care of your bread, but also takes care of your rizq in Jannah and Akhirah that will come to you. This is the prime responsibility of a Muslim leader. That's what makes it different from other secular leaders. They're only worried about giving you a good life in dunya, increasing your GDPs, building roads and building structures and transport routes. But a good Muslim leader always worries about your morality, your spirituality, and your life after death also. That's what makes us different from other non-Muslim leaders. Done, Beta Jani? You're welcome. May Allah bless you all. Jazakallah khair.